Welcome to Marfoogle News. Oh, wait a minute. You're not Adam. That's right, folks. I'm not Adam. It's me, Dex, and I'm actually filling in for Adam tonight, who had to step out to deal with some family things. But don't worry, you're in good hands, so let's get on with the show. Jumping right into tonight's news, China says U.S. military aid to Taiwan will not deter its will to unify the island. Wow. Okay, so China has accused the United States of turning Taiwan into a quote-unquote ammunition depot after the White House announced, as we told you last week, $345 million military aid package for Taipei. So this is a big deal, obviously, to China, but they're basically saying, hey, it's not a big deal. It's not going to deter us. We're going to keep moving. China's Taiwan Affairs Office issued a statement late Saturday opposing the military aid to Taiwan. So here's what they said. No matter how much the ordinary people's taxpayer money the Taiwanese separatist forces spend, no matter how many U.S. weapons, it will not shake our resolve to solve the Taiwan problem, or shake our firm will to realize the unification of our motherland. End quote. That was Shen Benoit, a spokesperson for the Taiwan Affairs Office. So interesting quotes coming out of China, of course, saying, hey, we're not worried about what you're doing, but we don't like it, and you're going to create them an ammo depot. So yes, we did give $35 million in military aid. We did that because it was faster and more expedient to give them that than to allow them to buy it. If they buy it, we have to manufacture it, and that takes time. Sort of like the $19 billion worth of weaponry, which includes F-18s, as well as other potential planes that were part of that package deal that they could buy. But that's going to take time. We have to manufacture it, and we have to send it to them. With this aid package, we're able to send it immediately. So look, we're going to cover this. We're going to cover a lot more. Stick around. We got a lot more to talk about on tonight's Marfoogle News, and I'll be right back right after this.
Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough.
All right. We are back again, folks. It's Dex here with you tonight, filling in for Adam. As a reminder, folks, everything we talk about on tonight's show, you can find over on marfooglenews.com. All you got to do is click on the thumbnail for tonight's show, and you'll see a webpage that is basically a complete bibliography with links and sources, everything we talk about on the show. And also, now is a great time to remind you to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. If you are actually subscribed or you think you're subscribed, it's also a great time to check it. We get complaints all the time about people saying, hey, the platform has unsubscribed me. So go look at it. See if you're subscribed. Make sure the bell's checked too. You want to make sure you're getting all notifications so you're not missing anything. All right, folks, let's get back into the details. So apparently MI5 investigated an attempted Chinese takeover of a British satellite company. So here are the pertinent facts you need to understand from this. So MI5 is obviously investigating it. The satellite company is called OneWeb, and they were looking at it because of the Chinese investors. So what had happened is OneWeb had declared bankruptcy in 2020, making it a potential target for investment. But the UK-led government at the time, led by Boris Johnson, actually saved OneWeb from bankruptcy by giving them a £400 million investment. But now OneWeb is set to be sold off to a French satellite giant, Eutelsat. Telesat. Telesat, I think is how you pronounce it. But the company, Telesat, is actually partially owned by a Beijing-backed investment firm, which is now causing a new security concern. Now, mind you, they had a potential Chinese suitor back when they were going into bankruptcy, but the local government, Boris Johnson, the UK government, actually bailed them out. Maybe they did that to prevent the takeover at that time, and now they're looking at it as another potential takeover, and they're concerned about how it's going. So, do you think they actually, did that to prevent the prior one? Also, what's up with Telesat, and why is this French company owned by have a significant ownership by a Chinese-controlled company? And what does that mean if we think about the satellites that are going up and being managed? And consider this like Starlink, but it's probably not the same. It's going to be different, but there's lots of commercial satellites that are up. But this satellite company, a UK-based company, that China is looking to own it or invest in it. So lots of questions going on there in my mind. You should be thinking about it too. Let me know what you think. If it's a big deal, not a big deal, whatever. Tell us in the comments below. But let's keep going. So get this. I know a lot of people have been talking about this one over the weekend. There was an unassuming warehouse in California. Turns out to be an illegal Chinese-run laboratory that was genetically engineering mice and experimenting with, let's just call it, some bad things like they begin with the letter H, and things like malaria, etc. So that's going on. So a Central California city is reeling after a nondescript warehouse turned out to be an illegal lab with deadly pathogens, including CV, HIV, malaria, and others. If it were not for an errant hose sticking out of the back of the warehouse last spring, city officials would not have even known that the shady biotech company with links to China had set up a shop there, filling its industrial freezers with hundreds of vials of bad things, and about 1,000 perished in dying lab mice. So apparently government investigators also found a CV diagnostic and pregnancy tests. They even found pregnancy tests. Why is that going on there? At the underground testing facility that they believed were being developed there, in addition to at least 20 stored infectious agents, including the ones I already named. So this lab was run under a company called Prestige Biotech. It was unlicensed for business in California, whose president, Zheqin Yao, said was a successor to the now defunct company Universal Meditech Incorporated. However, officials dispatched to the address linked to the companies turned up at the empty office buildings or addresses in China and could not be verified. So everything they looked to try to verify these companies, nothing, the addresses they have, not showing up to be anything. So the month-long investigation has now resulted in resulted in early July in the proper disposal of all the dangerous chemicals. So everything, all the substances, the labeled and unlabeled, everything that's there, they're now saying it's been cleared out. It's clear. And of course, they're just now telling us this. So I don't know why were they telling us now? They didn't tell us when they found it, but officials are saying that the immediate danger has been resolved, and power has been cut to the building, and there will be maybe lingering concerns about possible contamination in the area from improper waste disposal and leakage of dangerous bacteria and other Vs that could have potentially have dangers to the Reedley residents. But man, is this not a crazy story? So the real question is, what was going on before they discovered it? Like, what was happening in the black market there? Were they selling off stuff? Is there, and obviously this was not licensed. It was not registered. So lots of questions to be asked here. So tell me what you think. I'm sure there's a lot of ideas floating around about what could have been done here. But the real question is, why are they telling us this now? But really, how many labs are like this that are still in existence, that are these underground kind of labs? And why are they in other countries but owned by China? Why is the tie there? What are they doing? Like, that's the scary part. What else could be coming from this? And this is just the one they found? Is it the only one? I bet it's not. I bet there's many more. We just don't know about them. So how many of these shady backroom labs are actually being run by China in other countries, and for what purpose? So tell me what you think. Leave a comment down below. Let us know, and let's keep on trucking. So look, Italy just slammed China's $1 trillion Belt and Road Initiative, saying it was an atrocious, and that's a quote, an atrocious decision to join, and that it barely benefited from the deal. So, we've talked about this Belt and Road Initiative quite a bit. It's a multi-trillion-dollar deal that China put out back in 2013. It was an ambitious infrastructure mega project aiming to link over 100 countries across Europe and Asia through trade, including Indonesia, Poland, Egypt. The Center for Strategic and International Studies reported a broad range of estimates for how much China was investing in the project, anywhere between $1 trillion and $8 trillion. So you could see why countries would look at this and go, "Oh, this is exciting. I might want to get in on this." And Italy was actually the biggest country by GDP at the time that actually joined the Belt and Road Initiative. They're the only one of the G7, I believe, that had joined. But get this, they're saying it's a bad deal. It didn't work out. Like, they got a lot of more, they imported, their imports from China went up, but that doesn't necessarily do them any good. That just means they're buying more from China. But their exports to China barely increased. So they got nothing out of this deal. And they're actually suggesting now they're going to try to exit the deal by 2023. Now, here's the thing. Is it just that it's a bad deal? Or are they exiting the deal because they know something else is about to pop off? And Italy being one of the allies with the US and NATO, et cetera, would that prevent, are they doing this in advance of something that may be going down with China? Specifically. So a lot of questions to be asked here, a lot of things to think about. So, but let's move along. Let's talk about North Korea. Get this. I mean, come on. They always have something crazy to say, right? So they are now vowing to, quote unquote, annihilate the U.S. They even say that our country will be terminated this century. That's some big words. So the foreign ministry this week vowed that the country would annihilate the United States, adding that it would be terminated this century. Quote, "Should the U.S. choose to offend our republic, we will annihilate them by using all of our military power that we have gathered so far," the North Korean diplomats said in their statement Thursday on the 70th anniversary of the Korean War armistice. So the quote, "The Korean War in the last century marked the beginning of the downfall of the U.S." This is what North Korea is saying. I'll repeat that. "The Korean War in the last century marked the beginning of the downfall of the U.S. Now the 21st century would see the irrevocable termination of the U.S. The rulers of the U.S. as well advised to forget and no account the lessons of history." So that's the end of the quote. But basically, it's a bunch of rhetoric. I'm not buying half of what comes out of NK's mouth. And this isn't Kim. It's coming from the foreign ministry. But still, it's obviously it's a big day with the or on a day that's a big day for the anniversary of the armistice where they established the DMZ. And that was in a deal between NK and China and the U.S. I don't even think SK actually wanted to do it. They just went along because the U.S. was backing them, and that's how we set up the DMZ zone. But anyway, are we going to believe this or not? So. But let's keep going. Hey, real quick, before we move on, I want to tell you about EMP Shield. If you don't have an EMP Shield, or you're new to the channel, or you're just now learning about it, the threat of an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, a CME, a coronal mass ejection, or even lightning, which we all have all around us all the time. It's real. Those are real threats that can affect us. And if you are looking to protect yourself from that, you really should check out this great company. It's called EMP Shield. They've been a partner of ours. They've been part of our community. They're a veteran-run operation. They started as a small company in Kansas. Now they're this large company because they've been growing and adding more, everything made in America. They work with DOD. They work with DHS. They have lots of really cool big contracts with lots of other people in the commercial and military space, if you want to call it that. But they have great consumer products as well They work on your house, your car, even your boats, anything that has a motor and some form of electricity, basically a bunch of wires. If there's wires in your car, which there are, or your home, which is full of wire in all the walls, you can put an EMP shield in there and you can protect that from everything that's plugged into it from the effects of an EMP. When an EMP happens, all of that wire gets supercharged from the particles, and everything that's connected to it, like all the components in your car, will get this massive zap. There's 3 phases in an EMP, an E1, an E2, and an E3. This product has been tested against all 3 phases. It's been tested 42 times in a row, and it continued to keep operating. The technology that they have developed is so fast, and that's what's important here. It's about speed, because EMPs and even CMEs, but really EMPs, are very fast, just like lightning. The amount of charge that comes through the wires, whether it's in your house or your car that all your devices may be plugged into, that's what's important to protect, and it's about speed. They have invented a system that is so fast it can even protect against a direct lightning strike. It's so cool. They even have a $25,000 insurance policy against it. So if you do have damage, they take care of it. So look, go check them out. EMP Shield, go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. You can learn all about their products. Again, protect your car, your house, your boat, your RV, your side-by-side, whatever you want. They even have a micro, and it's real easy. If you're putting it in a car, it's, green to ground on the motor or the frame, and then you've got red and black to connect to your battery. The positive and the negative on the battery. So easy to install in a car. In your house, it's the same exact principle. I just recommend you use an electrician, because you put it in the panel where your breakers go. Again, marfooglenews.com/EMP. You get a discount on every device you buy, especially if you're using our code MARF in our link. It'll give you that discount. And if they're running a sale, it gets to stack on top of it. And that is per device. So if you're buying multiples, you're saving a lot more. Check it out, marfooglenews.com/EMP. All right, getting back into it. The Kremlin threatens the use of nuclear weapons in retaliation for drone strike in Moscow skyscrapers. Putin ally warns there is no other way out after an attack on the business district that closed the Russian airspace and left 1 injured. Now, a lot of people are talking about this. It's all over Twitter, tons of pictures. I'll show you some here as I'm going through it. You can see what was happening. But Russia has issued a very stark warning of a potential nuclear retaliation. They've done this numerous times. They always tell us about a nuclear retaliation, but they're saying it yet again for this recent drone attack on the Moscow skyscrapers. So the attack, which the Russian Defense Ministry branded as a quote-unquote attempted T attack by the Kiev regime, resulted in 3 drones striking an office and a residential building in Moscow. In response, Dmitry Medvedev, who we know loves to throw the nuke comment around, he's the former Russian president. He's also the head of the Security Council, so he still has a position of authority, pretty much like the number 2 guy next to Putin. He stated that should UKR or NATO seize any part of their land, that they should respond immediately and resort to nuclear weapons. So that, and it's claiming it as part of the decree from Putin. So look, what happened? 3 drones made it through. They were, according to Moscow, they were downed, but then according to the pictures, something happened. Like they either hit the buildings, or the downing of them hit the buildings, or they didn't actually get downed and maybe they made it through. So as you look at these pictures, you can be the judge. But Russia has claimed it brought all 3 of them down, and that, it's also thwarted an attempted attack overnight with other things that were happening in Crimea. We'll talk about some of that later. But the Kremlin has also issued this nuke threat, and they issued it in multiple ways. He talked over the weekend. They talked about that one I just mentioned. They also mentioned the Poseidon. So they were putting that out there, making sure that everybody remembers that they have the Poseidon, and that's potentially coming. So look, is Russia exaggerating these attacks? And are they doing it to justify being able to use these nuclear threats or escalation? Or, we've talked about some of this. Could this be a setup for, an FF operation to allow them to escalate? Or is it about Zielinski, and is he really pushing all of these drones? And is he doing this because he'll do anything right now to escalate the entire situation and bring NATO in? Obviously, his desire is to see NATO marching forward, not just giving him more equipment, which he begs for all the time, and money, but he really thinks for them to win. And it's probably true. They're not going to win if NATO is not there helping them, or more so in his position, actually being engaged. So is he going to poke the bear, so to speak, so much so that it causes some form of retaliation and draws NATO in? Which one of those scenarios is it, folks? What do you think? Or is there something else? Like, let us know. Drop a comment down below, and we'll read it. So let's keep going, though, talking more about what's happening with UKR and Russia. So Russia is now surrounding the Crimean Bridge with special floating barriers, and they're doing this in an attempt to ward off more attacks. So, the attack of the bridge recently that we've covered here, we talked about, you've probably already heard about, it was done with a boat drone, had a jet ski type propulsion system and a very small boat. But that attack happened, and now they're saying that they're putting these floating barriers up, and they're setting it up as a way of, keeping those types of boats out, or at least when they get there, they'll hit the barriers before they hit the bridge. So fearing more attacks, and I'll read you a little bit from the article, fearing more attacks on the Crimean Bridge, the Russian military is deploying floating quote unquote anti-sabotage booms next to the structure, which connects UKR, as Russia's occupied Crimea, with Russia. So it's a very important bridge. It's the one that all the traffic goes in and out on, all the military would move in and out on. So obviously it's a critical piece of infrastructure. This comes out of a Russian Telegram channel, MASH. It posted the pictures apparently showing the assembly of the sections of the boom, and it resembled sort of like a ribbed piping. So the pipe additionally has on top of it a fence or a vertical metal rods that reinforce with cross pieces, and these barriers are designed to protect against the surface and even underwater drones, because I guess the same way it sticks up over the water, it probably sticks down below the water, trying to prevent any type of unmanned vehicle from coming through. So, quote, it says the Crimean Bridge was additionally fenced with special anti-sabotage booms in case of a new attempts by Kiev to commit T-attacks. According to our information, in the future, the structures will protect the bridge from attacks throughout its entire length. That came from the post that they posted these pictures on. So look, sounds like they're investing heavily to protect this bridge, and obviously things like a bridge, especially in that location, are very susceptible and easy targets. So that's what's happening there in Crimea. Get this, though. So apparently Putin is forming mysterious private armies across Russia to protect himself from Wagner soldiers, according to a report. And so let's get into what they're saying. Basically, Russian President Vladimir Putin is forming a network of mysterious private military companies to protect himself. The plans for these private military companies, or these quote-unquote special enterprises, were noted in the new bill that raises the draft age. So if you remember, we talked about this new bill last week, that they were changing the draft age. They actually wanted to raise the age from 18 to 21, and then the upper age, they were adding another 3 years to that. Well, they decided not to raise 18 to 21, but they did decide to extend the age range at the top. So they basically just widened the funnel, so to speak, instead of moving the funnel and keeping it the same. But anyway, buried in that report is this bill, or in that bill is this notion of these special enterprises. So the move is aimed at countering sabotage and internal threats, according to a statement from the Duma Defense Committee Chairman Andrei Kartopolov. So according to the report, Putin's militia would be under the command of the regional governors. It would operate at Putin's behest, and it would be armed by the Russian Ministry of Defense. So the military is arming them, but they're going to be protecting Putin, but they're in the command of the regional governors. So the Barents Observer, a Norwegian outlet, said that the unit's job is to protect the state border, fight illegal armed groups, and combat foreign sabotage and intelligence formation. So sounds very much like squashing what we sort of saw with that coup, as some people call it that, although I don't know what we're going to call it because the story has spun around on that thing so many times. But the way the militias will interact with the other branches of the military and the intelligence apparatuses, it's not clear. They haven't actually published that. It was not in there. It just said they're going to create these groups. So, and it's interesting because they already have a National Guard. So Russia already has a National Guard. And obviously Putin has multiple layers of protection and security. So kind of interesting to see this type of reaction to that event. Like he's going so far as to create this yet another layer of militia and military, and then giving them powers at the state level, but with orders to protect him. Kind of interesting. So anyway, well, let's keep going. So, speaking of Putin, a lot was going on in Russia. So they had their naval day. And so Putin reviews show of Russian naval might as the headline. But what happens here? So President Vladimir Putin reviewed a parade of warships and nuclear submarines in St. Petersburg. And this happened on Sunday. This is the key point. He announced that he would receive 30 new ships this year. So they're rolling 30 more ships out into their Navy. So that's a pretty significant thing. They had 45 ships, submarines, and other vessels that took part in the annual Navy Day event. It's basically a traditional show of military might, which takes place in the Gulf of Finland and on the River Neva. It's all right there at St. Petersburg. There was around 3,000 Navy personnel that took part in the parade. By the way, this event, when I mentioned earlier from Medvedev and others that made comments, these were the types of events that they would show up and make these comments about the drone strikes and how they would reference nuclear weapons and things like that, especially the Poseidon, to sort of throw back at that. So all these events were happening in Russia, and these were the ideal opportunities for these talking heads to get FaceTime and say these things. So in a quote, it says here, I believe this is from Putin. So he says, "Today, Russia is confidently implementing the large-scale tasks of our national maritime policy, and it's consistently building up the strength of our Navy," Putin said. This year alone, 30 ships of different classes are being added to the fleet. So that's the headline. They're adding 30 ships. This all went down over the Navy Day, etc. So, look, after the latest Moscow strike, Zelensky warns that the drone war is coming to Russia. So let's stoke that fire. Not only did he send them over and they were able to make contact, but he then comes right out and makes a statement basically saying, yeah, you get used to it because we're going to keep sending more. So Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky responded to the latest drone strike that hit Moscow with a warning of further attacks on Russian territory, including military infrastructure. Zelensky refrained from accepting full responsibility for the attacks that were on the Russian capital, but the UKR officials are increasingly referring more explicitly to these events, which have stepped up notably in recent weeks. And it's sort of obvious. We know it's them, even though Russia's saying it, we sort of can tell from the commentary coming from UKR that they're accepting as well. But the quote is from Zelensky is, "Gradually the war is returning to the territory of Russia, to its symbolic centers and military bases," he said. And he said this Sunday. It was in a nightly video address. He also went on to say that this is an inevitable, natural, and absolute fair process. So this was his warning. He's basically saying, yeah, we did it, and you should expect more, and we're going to keep doing it. Now, it's interesting because, you look at these are attacks on businesses. They were attacks on apartments or homes, high rises, but, residential areas. So some would say that's kind of, not what war or conflict should be about. But then there's plenty of reports on the other side that's happened in UKR, right? We've seen numerous times of missiles or things coming in and hitting residences or hospitals or other things. Now, again, we always tell you all of this stuff you have to take with a big grain of salt because you have no idea, especially the stuff coming out of UKR and the stuff coming out of Russia, because they both control their media. They both control the narrative. They both control what's allowed to be pushed out, and you're in conflict. conflict, and in conflict, propaganda is one of the most important tool sets they use, so they control that narrative. So keep that in mind. Giant grain of salt on all of this, but some of the stuff we sort of know, like, the drone attacks happened. It could be seen. So, but all the rhetoric that goes around it, you sort of have to take with that grain of salt. So now, I think this is probably in retaliation for the drone hits in Moscow, because now on Monday, Russian missiles perish at least 6 in Zelensky's hometown. So they targeted his hometown. So Russian ballistic missiles slammed into an apartment complex and a university building in President Vladimir Zelensky's hometown on Monday, perishing 6 people and wounding 75 others as the blast trapped residents beneath rubble, according to UKR officials. So one of the 2 missiles hit the central city of Kryvyi. I know I'm probably butchering that. I apologize. It destroyed part of an apartment building between the 4th and 9th floors, the Interior Minister Igor Klimenko said. So they do have video, I guess, of some black smoke billowing from the corners of the unit and burned out damaged cars on the tree lines. So it's unfortunate. The people that perished, there was a 10-year-old girl, her mother, according to Zelensky, and then more than 350 people were involved in the rescue operations, etc. That was all reported on his Telegram post. So do you think this was a retaliation? I'm sure it was. Look, they're in the middle of a conflict, so every day you're going to have stuff going back and forth. But certainly when you see some of these bigger escalations, or in this case, targeting the hometown of the current president, Vladimir Zelensky there, that's that's a sign. That's not, normally they would go after military targets, etc. So, all right. Hey, real quick, before I forget, go take a look at energy. I have a Flex 1500. If you need a solar generator, and everyone I think needs a solar generator, backup power is the most important thing, especially with the threats of EMP, especially with the threats that we talked about. If you didn't see that video over on news, we talked about the current infiltration that's happening right now on our grid, especially in our military, but we know it's happening on the outside on the grid too. The threat of losing power from an adversarial attack is significant. The threat of losing power from a heat wave is significant. The threat of losing power from the winter is significant. All those things happen. We lose power all the time, and the best thing you can do is have a backup supply, whether that be a gas generator or even better, a solar generator. Energy is one of the best out there. They have the Energy Flex 1500, which is basically a modular system. You can expand it with multiple batteries. You can expand it with faster charging units. If you need to have more solar capability, it's basically like Legos. You can stack them up and plug in exactly what you need, or custom design exactly what you want for your situation. More batteries, more charging, more solar. Build it how you want. If you want the best of the best, look at the Energy Tactical. This is used by the military, designed with the military. They've won some recent bids for that as well, and other things that are going on with the military. All that's over on the site. You can read about it. But great products, super fast charging, lithium battery technology. They have really great packages too. If you're looking for a complete solution of panels, a couple of batteries, and a charging or a head unit, they've got packages. So go take a look. You do get a discount if you're using our link and our code Marfoogle. So make sure you go to marfooglenews.com/energy. That's spelled with an INERGY. marfooglenews.com/energy. It's on our website. It'll take you right there. You can learn more about it. Again, fabulous product. I love my Flex 1500. It's great. I use it all the time. Especially I use it when we don't have a power outage. So if I just need power in another room or in another place, or I'm going to go work out in the yard and I want to run some tools, I'll grab it, or take it camping. That's a great use case too. And especially when you're traveling, if you're going somewhere, having backup power when you're on the road is handy as well. All right, let's keep going. So get this. The Pentagon was hit by critical compromise of U.S. Air Force communications. Get that? Air Force communications. So This is kind of weird. The Pentagon is investigating a suspected breach of communications across 17 U.S. Air Force facilities after a tip-off from a base commander. The contractor revealed that a 48-year-old engineer at Arnold Air Force Base in Tennessee had allegedly taken home various government radio technologies. The stolen equipment is believed to have cost nearly $90,000, and the engineer was found to have unauthorized access to the radio communication technology used by the Air Education and Training Command, AETC. So this engineer reportedly had unauthorized access to the tech, so he wasn't supposed to be there. He was taking it home, okay? This is affecting 17 different Defense Department installations. The investigators found that the engineer running a Motorola radio programming software containing the Arnold Air Force Base communication system. So that when they raided his house, they found not only the radio equipment, but he had the programming software to program the radio equipment. And it was logged in and set up for the Arnold Air Force Base. They seized the items from the engineer's home, included a USB containing administrative passwords and electronic system keys. So these are like the critical passwords for these communication networks that they've set up for the Air Force. He had the keys to that for the AETC radio network. He had flash drives that had local law enforcement radio programming files into it. Now, mind you, it sounds like the guy is a radio head, like he really likes the radio stuff, but he's obviously doing some stuff that's really shady, because they wouldn't be barging into his house and taking everything and going after him with the Espionage Act, because that's what they literally are. They're going after him with the Espionage Act. So the engineer, whose name has not been disclosed, allegedly sold some of the radios, sold radio equipment, and worked odd hours, they're saying, and he frequently lied and had financial problems, amongst other accusations. Now, these are coming from obviously the people that worked around him as part of this investigation. They're only releasing some of it. They're not telling us who he is or any of that stuff. But the investigators found evidence that the engineer might have actually had access to FBI communications as well as the Tennessee state agencies. Man, this guy's he's connected everywhere with the radios. So, but the engineer's LinkedIn page shows an extensive history in cybersecurity and radio communications. Again, makes sense. He's a radio head. That's probably why he was working with all this. That's probably why he was employed, because he was probably really smart in this, but he was just doing what he shouldn't be doing. So what do you think? Like, if an engineer is working, would he be working with foreign entities to sell the stuff off? Is he just a geek and he's just enjoying taking home a bunch of gear that he's not supposed to have? And what kind of compromise would this be to the U.S. military communication system? I mean, that's kind of a big deal, especially the secure communications that go on across these radios. They have, secure lines, secure communications, and the keys and the encryption and all that. Obviously, he had access to quite a bit of this information, the report is alleging. So, is this breach part of a larger orchestrated attack? That's something to think about. Is this part of some of the other things that we've been reporting? Is this, are we going to turn up tomorrow and find out that he has ties to China and the people he was selling it to was China? And what would happen if they had our radio gear? And think about that balloon that went over and all the radio gear that was in it. Some of it was made from the U.S., but what if, they used that as a trial run to see if they could actually, tap into the communication systems that were going on with our military? That's kind of a crazy thought. So keep that in mind. What do you think? Let us know down in the comments below. So I want to give a great shout out to everybody here, and thank you so much for bearing with me. And it's one of the few shows I do every now and then when Adam is out. So I do appreciate everyone and your time and sticking with me to this point. Okay, so let me remind you all, please, if you liked what you saw so far, if you're new here, if you've been here a long time, hit that like button, hit the share button, and obviously hit that subscribe button. That helps us. That's the best thing you can do to help us, and I really, really appreciate it. And since I'm here all alone tonight, maybe you could show me how much love you got for that by hitting that like button. Just run that number up for me. So look, let me tell you what's happening in the Overflow. For those of you that are new, we actually put on more news. We put it on our website, so we've got sort of the rest of the story. All you got to do is go to marfooglenews.com, click click on the thumbnail for today's show. Or you can go down below in the description and click on the show notes link. It'll take you right to this page where all of the sources and everything we just talked about, it's right here available to you. But there's an orange bar that says Overflow. It's where the rest of the story is. So let me tell you what's happening. So look, Phoenix has got these temperatures over 110. They've now hit 31 straight days. I think literally every single day in the month of July has been over 110 degrees. Now, I've got lots of emails from people in Arizona saying, hey, come on, we get 110 degrees. We get multiple days of that. This is not news. Why are y'all freaking out about it? Well, and it's true. I actually went back and I looked at the historical temperatures, and sure enough, there's always days that are over 110. But I do believe the reason the media is talking about it, in addition to the fact that they like to talk about change, is the fact that is these so many consecutive days. When I looked in the last 3 to 4 years in the month of July, you'd see 4 days, you'd see 7 or 8 days, you might see even a week and a half, but you never saw the entire month. So as they're reporting now, they finally, the month's coming to an end. They've hit 31 straight days of 110 degrees, and that is a record. So, but again, the people that live there will say it's no big deal. We get 110 all the time. So we're used to it. Maybe they don't like it for 31 straight days, but it's not news to them. But certainly the rest of us that don't live in Arizona, we know that heat and we're feeling a lot of it. Not 110, but we certainly are feeling the extra heat that's going around. Look, if you didn't see, Elon, and we talked about this last week, changed the name of Twitter to X. He put this giant flashing big bold X on top of the headquarters in San Francisco. Well, guess what? Now San Francisco is making him remove it because they're saying it wasn't legal or he didn't follow licensing policies or whatever, or get approval for it. So anyway, it's coming down. Maybe it was a temporary stunt anyway, but the name change and the letter X, it's sticking around. It's not going anywhere. I know a lot of people are questioning it, especially with his ties to Xi and China. But I will remind folks that a long, long, long time ago, before he was embedded with Xi in China selling Teslas, he actually had and owned this thing called X.com. It was a domain name, and he always had plans to do something with it. So read into that whatever you want. Maybe he was foretelling the future, but hey, confidence in the U.S. military is at an all-time lowest in over 2 decades. That's kind of crazy. Doesn't surprise us, I guess, in some aspects, but not necessarily what you want to see happening. But definitely with what's going on in the changes in our military and the situations across our political spectrum, I think there's a lot of confidence that's low in lots of different things in the military. Certainly not surprising that that's one of them. Interesting article. Go check it out if you want to see more about it. For those of you that care or don't care, Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, he has perished at the age of 70. There's more updates on what happened there. Hey, get this. In China, there's a zoo that is actually denying that its bears are humans in costumes. Apparently, the way this bear was standing, people looked at the video and they're like, that's a human. There's somebody in that costume. That's just a costume. They don't have real bears there. But they're allegedly now trying to bring reporters in to show them the bears and prove that they're real bears and not humans. But it was kind of funny. If you look at the video, you could sort of say, yeah, maybe that is a human standing in that costume. But I think to their point, it's so hot there that a human wouldn't last very long in a bear costume in a zoo all day long on display for everybody to look at. But anyway, the fact that they had to respond to that is kind of funny. Lots of other stuff going on in the political spectrum. We've got, everything from DeSantis to T-Man and what's happening there, and in Fulton County and the DA, they're ready to go. That's all about to happen, here where I live, over here in Georgia. So all of that stuff, if you're looking for it, including stuff with the current president's son and what they're talking about with him and with the president, all that stuff's covered there. So plenty of that going on. Look, Perseid meteor shower is underway or is coming up. So if you want to know about that, I think it's busiest in August. So August starts probably when you're watching this video. It's we're recording this late in the evening on Monday, so tomorrow is the beginning of August, so that'll be coming up. So if you want to learn more about where you can see the blue moon and the Perseid meteor shower, it's on our website. Go take a look. Unfortunately, the world's oldest man, Jose Apolino Gomez, has perished at the age of 127. Can you imagine living that long? That's many, many years. But you know what? That's not out of the realm of possibility. As technological advances keep coming, we're probably going to see numbers that go much higher than that in the coming years, which actually will create even more problems, because they're already saying our older aged population is growing at a much greater clip than our younger age population, who's the ones that would have to support them all. So, wow. Not a fan of population programming, but certainly understand that there's a problem coming up if things don't get fixed. And I think people like Elon and others who are telling people, hey, have more kids, they're probably on the right path. And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that know there's a lot of other folks that are trying to change that and not have the population continue to grow. But anyway, let's move on. So look, we do have additional things from the UKR events. So there's a few more articles in there about what's happening in Russia. Again, all of this, it's the rest of the story. It's everything else we put together that we didn't put in the main show. So if you're looking for more information, all you got to do is go to our website. You can click that show notes link down below in the description, or you can just go to marfooglenews.com and click on the thumbnail for the show. So, hey folks, that's it for tonight. I hope this was valuable to you. We wanted to get the most important news out. Make sure you had something, bring everybody together so you guys can chat. I know it's a premiere, so for those of you that are watching this live, you're able to chat with everybody in the community. I'll be in there saying hello. And I want to give a big shout out to all the mods out there. Matter of fact, everybody in chat, do me a favor, hit the M for the mods. Tell them how much you love them. Just put an M in chat. That would be great. And don't forget, leave a comment. If you got something to say, if you liked it, don't like it, want to critique me, feel free. Put it down below in the comments. But I'll be back. We'll be back. We got more updates as the week progresses. So don't go anywhere. Make sure you're subscribed. Like, share, and subscribe. We'll be here for you. Much love, everybody, and Dex out.
Looking outside of my window, seeing a crescendo. I'm not going out there where apocalypse roams. Looking outside of my window, seeing a crescendo. I'm not going out there where apocalypse roams.